what I want to do is, I think, jump to Skada's first set of picks. We'll have you fire us off with destroyers. You got the Yugumo. I have not looked at these. I'm very excited to see what they are.
I forget what I gave you, so I'm excited too. We'll go. We made this slide deck. It feels like a long time ago now because we were going to do this the other night.
Right.
Number 3 destroyer, Yugumo, Tier 9 Japanese torpedo boat. Yugumo has serviceable guns. People sleep on the guns on the torpedo boat line, but those 127s, you can always light a fire with them. I dig that about them. It's got 2x4, so you got 8 torpedoes. With the upgrade, they're 12-kilometer torpedoes. With my setup, they're 70 knots. I can't remember if that's the default speed or if that's with my good captain. So pardon that. AA on it's negligible. Speed on it's mediocre. This is one where I like running swift and silence on all the Japanese torpedo boats because I don't care about losing 5 seconds of gun reload. The concealment is god tier. I love really low concealed torpedo boats. And then that's my random thought there is, do you have the courage to trade your smoke generator for a torpedo reload booster? If you want to roll deep and you want to be Billy Badass, it's taking off that smoke and throwing the reload booster on there and using that 5.5 conceal and taking a chance. Because in silver, you're going to see a lot more cruisers in silver than you probably have been in bronze, and they're going to be some of the cruisers on our list, and all of them are going to have radar.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to get spotted.
Nobody's taking out anything without radar. Maybe they're taking out Brindisi or something because they're leveling it, but man, you're getting a lot of radar.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of sensors out there, and I think you're going to see more carriers too. Even though we're in 9s, and we'll talk about this, I guess, when we get to talking cruisers and carriers. But I think it's relevant for destroyer discussion. I will say I agree with you 100%. You're Billy Badass if you drop the smoke and go with the torpedo reload booster. I did this with my Shiratsuyu. Even though I own the Udachi, which doesn't make me make that choice, I said, well, let's get a win on the Shiratsuyu. Took it out there. Had the best game I have ever had. At least the best game of last week in Tier 7 ranked, 125,000 damage, clutch win at the end. I saved the replay, and we may turn that into a video. It was such an interesting game, at least I thought so. And hopefully, if there's a chance where that lands on YouTube, you guys will get to weigh in and tell me if you like that as well. But yeah, it is stressful without the smoke and the Yugumo, but your potential for damage output is enormous.
Yeah, if you could go out in a match and there isn't a carrier. And I didn't see when I was doing the qual, at least the other day, I never saw carriers. And I feel like last season, even in bronze when it was 8s and 9s, I didn't feel like I saw a lot of carriers. And when I did, it seemed like it was people like me who were like, I have a Kaga, I'm going to mess around. And didn't know what they were doing really. So I think you can get away with taking the smoke off there. That said, all of my experience playing Yugumo in randoms is with the smoke generator. That's my safety blanket. I like the smoke generator. But that torpedo booster with those torpedoes is strong because the damage on those torpedoes is like 15 or 16k. Like, they punch big. Those Japanese torpedoes, they might be higher than that. I can't remember at Tier 9, but they hit really hard.
They're very competitive with Fletcher as far as damage. And the one thing that is kind of interesting, we look at this, you got 12-kilometer range torpedoes, which outranges Fletcher. You've got, I don't know if 70 is faster or not, and that might be captain perked there, but that's pretty quick. But when you take away the rapid torpedo reloader, this becomes a Japanese Fletcher with a few Japanese perks, like the slightly longer torpedo range and stuff like that. And so at that point, you have to say, okay, which one of these boats is really more my flavor? And look at those two carefully as a comparison, and maybe even throw a Chung in there as well. And I don't know if those boats are going to come up later on our lists, or your list at least. And so we'll talk about them if and when they come up. But yeah, I think Yugumo is a solid pick.
That's one thing to throw out there really quick. When I build my list, and I don't know, I think you've done this the same way. I am only selecting boats that are in my port that I have and have played. So I don't have Fletcher or Chung yet. They may be on your list. They should be.
Okay.
Fletcher's a rad boat. I don't have Fletcher yet. I only have the Benson because I'm new to destroyers, folks.
Right, that's true.
I only started playing destroyers a few months ago.
Yeah, that's a good point. And another thing we should have mentioned earlier on, too, is we're trying to do a mix of tech tree and premium boats here. So we tried to keep that roughly balanced. I think between the two lists, Scott and I were talking, and we have an equal number between both of us. Even though we each only selected 9 boats, we don't have equal numbers within our 2 lists. So there's going to be a healthy dose of tech tree boats on here because it's not all about premiums. I shopped, I think, almost entirely or primarily from my own list. I might have stepped outside of the boats that I own to throw one extra one on here. We'll see if I remember what I put on.
I'm interested to hear that then. I'm curious what that is.
Yeah. Well, let's bounce over to my list. We're going to jump down to my first destroyer pick, which this should, again, surprise nobody. I think Udaloi is a really strong boat. If you look at the numbers on WoW's numbers, it seems okay, but not super strong. I like the Udaloi a lot. It's nimble and maneuverable. The detectability, detection range is about 7.2K, which could be a little bit long. It could be a lot shorter. I would love it if it was 5.5 like the Yugumo, but it's not. It has great guns, 130 millimeter guns with it. That's a 22 millimeter HE pen. If you throw IFHE on there, you get to 27, and that's a magic number. That's getting you up there above a lot of the cruiser deck armor and things like that. 4.2 second reload with long range. Now, these numbers, again, are achievable with captain perks and modules and things. I just pulled the numbers right off my port. If you're curious about how I achieve these numbers, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on the stream in chat or something in some future time, and we can talk about my config for any of these boats. If you guys are like, I can't seem to figure out how to get 4.2 second reload, we can figure out how to get you there. Torpedoes, this one has a triangle-shaped torpedoes. So there's 2 launchers and a single launcher. The single launcher behind can fire to both sides. The 2 other launchers are single side only. So it's 3 5-torp launchers, but you can't launch 15 torps off one side of the boat. They're 10K range, which is enough to stealth torp, with plenty of room. That's 2.8K of stealth torping room. 60 knot speed isn't really high, but it's only 10K, so hopefully you're going to be able to hit what you point at. AA rating is okay at 47. You're going to be fighting down-tiered carriers, so I think that's probably sufficient. Pretty quick at 40 knots. It's not as fast as Leningrad or some of the French cruisers or the higher-tiered Russian ones, but 40 knots is pretty serviceable. 43.2 with speed boost. Equipment notes, this thing is on the Grozavoy line. So Grozavoy is the destroyer that has like all of the consumables. And so Udaloi gets them too, but Udaloi feels more like a Khabarovsk that has extra toys in the toy box. It's got smoke, it's got speed boost, hull repair, and turbo AA, and you don't have to trade for any of that. It's just all on the ship. The hull repair is okay. It's 112 HP a second for 28 seconds. So it's pretty serviceable for a destroyer. There's probably something out there that's stronger, but I think Udaloi is great, and I dressed it up in this island style camo just for kicks. Skada, what do you think of Udaloi?
An obvious Clyde pick because as most people may not know, you are a double agent for the Soviet Union. You love everything in this game.
Time traveling
Soviet.
double agent.
I played this line through the Grozavoy basically because begrudgingly, much like I did with the IJN cruisers, because you love them, and I was like, fine, I'm going to see what you know. I like Udaloi. I loved that it could put 15 torpedoes in the water. I don't like the torpedo speed. The range is okay.
Right.
I like the guns on Udaloi. They get the job done. I like the speed on Udaloi. I love all the tools in the toolbox. But as well, I abhor the 7.2 kilometer detection range. It is terrible. That part of it, if you're playing on a map where you've got a lot of islands in a cap, you can use this boat to fight in a cap. If you don't, if it's an open water map, you can't fight for caps in this boat. You're not that guy. It's much like Tashkent, I assume. I don't have Tashkent. I'm only up to, what's the other one? Kiev?
Yeah.
But yeah, the concealment on this one's rough. So when I got Grozavoy, and it has a real destroyer concealment, I thought I would like it better. And it turns out I don't. For some reason, Udaloi feels better under my mouse hand than Grozavoy does.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't know why, but I'll figure out Grozavoy eventually. I've just played Udaloi more, but I've had great games in Udaloi where I've done a lot of damage in randoms and we lose because I just struggled with getting the job done in the way. You know how I play Destroyer, and it's probably not totally right for the Russians. But I do think this is a really good boat. I don't know how it'll do in ranked, but I look forward to hearing from you in a week or so. Or however, I guess not a week or so.
Depends on if I get to silver.
A couple weeks. If you get to silver, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk. I'll grind up to try to get there. I may have to do some ranked on stream and stuff rather than our normal team up and stuff. Yes, that is a great comment, Errol the Red.
Yes.
The turn radius on Udaloi is fabulous. I love cranking the wheel on that thing and having it actually turn.
And that comment there is exactly probably why I like Udaloi better, because it actually handles.
Yeah, I'm giving you a yes and a +1 in chat over there.
Yeah.
Totally agree, Errol. That's awesome. And I'm a big fan of that. I know the detect range is bad. What Skada just talked about is, with the capping situation. If an Udaloi is going up against a Yugumo 1v1, without any help from anybody, that's a rough day for Udaloi. If Udaloi is going up against a Yugumo and Udaloi has a radar cruiser with him, the Yugumo's toast, right? But you can't do it on your own, right? You got to have trust in an ally and that kind of a thing. Because you're getting outspotted and getting a wall of torps launched at you, you're just toast. There's just no way. So I agree. If I can get up to silver, I'm definitely going to run the Udaloi. I don't know that it's actually a great pick for everyone, but I know it's a good pick for me and my playstyle. It's kind of my Leningrad at this pick, at silver. So let's bounce over to Skada. Will jump up to his pick. Number 2 is Z46 for the German line.
Yeah, this probably won't be a popular pick. I don't think a lot of people respect the original German destroyer line. I love Z23. I really, really love Z46. This is another situation where I like Z46 better than I like Z52 right now. Took Z46 out in our last clan battle season. I'm not a destroyer player. I took it out the last week of clan battles because I was like, I want to play destroyers, guys, and I did really, really well in it. I felt like I held my own in it. Its hydros allow you to fight in caps in a way that I really like playing. Its guns don't suck. Its torpedoes reload quickly, and the torpedoes are totally usable. So, the guns, they're back to 128s on this boat, but the reload's rad. Everybody's like, well, it's weird because there's only one turret front. Everything I hate about the rune in the gun layout, I loved about on the Z46. I liked having the 2 guns in the back because I could waggle and run and do things. The 2x4 torp launchers with a 10-kilometer range, that's not world beating, but that 76.5 second reload is. That's great.
And the
AA rating on it is...
The speed is high.
Yeah, and the speed's good. It's not like European, but it's good.
Yeah.
The damage isn't amazing, but it's good. AA defense is, man, the speed on the boat is okay. It's not Udaloi, but it's okay. The concealment on it is what I like to see. I like sub-6 concealment, but the hydros, that for whatever reason in these competitive modes, I like having that ability to censor out and hunt down other destroyers. I like to go in caps and fight for them, and this boat really fits the way I like to play to a T.
Yeah, sensors are super valuable in any of these competitive modes. Any opportunity you have to have more information is really valuable. And so you'll note that when you look through a lot of these ships that are on these lists, you're going to see a lot of folks putting down censorships. And it's usually we think about radar because of your ability to convert a radar usage into a kill on a DD. Right? If you can get that kill, that's worth a lot. But radar sensors like acoustics, you can use those to keep yourself safe. You can use those to keep your battleship safe. And what Skada said was, going in and you can, if you're 5.5 kilometers away, I think it's 5.5 on the Z46, and somebody hits their smoke, they just gave you free smoke. You can hit your hydros and delete that destroyer. So absolutely really strong. I did a chart like the one I did for Haida to compare a few of the DD Hunter destroyers for Tier 9 as well. I don't think it's in the slide deck, so I can't show it to you guys. But one thing that I found really interesting is people don't think the Z46 has the greatest of guns, but it's got 32 millimeter armor pen, or HE pen, and it puts out a maximum of 135,000 damage in a minute. Here's the thing that people wouldn't buy unless I told them. Mogador only puts out 137,000 damage. So people think Mogador is this big gunboy murder boat and everything, but Z46 is competitive with it and has better HE pen. So Z46 is no slouch. It doesn't have the range Mogador has, but it's really good at doing the smoke up, hit acoustics, delete destroyer thing. And those guns are The GMAC makes the comment, "Guns don't suck. High praise from Skada." Guns don't suck, and that is high praise in this case. So definitely, I agree with Z46. I don't believe I put it. I don't think I put it on my list. But like you, it's been a few days since I've looked at this, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'll tell you, 32 millimeter of HE pen is like the sweet spot at tier 9.
Yeah.
I made hay in the sunshine with the Pommern and IFHE a couple years ago, making its secondaries pen 32 millimeters and 37 millimeters. 32 millimeter pen with this destroyer lets me blast the bow or the nose of a Jean Bar. It lets me blast the nose of an Alsace, and it actually lets me do pen damage, right? And so if I find myself in a situation where there's a destroyer or a battleship pushing like that, and I'm using those 2 turrets on the back while I'm running away, being able to blunt their nose is kind of good. Like being able to pop them on the nose like a shark and say, "Hey, stay back." Like this isn't peanuts here. I'm not going to light a fire on you with the German guns probably because it's just anemic, but that built-in pen is good. And and if you go AP on this, the AP is very serviceable against cruisers that aren't Russian.
Yeah, I compared Jutland, Z46, Fletcher, and Mogador, and Z46's AP max damage is like almost 100,000 more than all of those boats. And people think of Jutland, Fletcher, and Mogador as really strong boats. So yeah, the AP on the Z46 is magnifique, or whatever the German equivalent of that is. Fantastic. No, I like the Z46. I think that's a good tech tree pick.
The German equivalent would be wunderbar.
Yeah, wunderbar. There you go. Even though I was just crapping all over Mogador, it made my list. Why did it make my list? Because it's like all of my Russian boats. It's fast. It's got big guns, 139 millimeters, 23 millimeter HE pen, which is less than the 128s we just talked about on Z46. 7-second reload is long. I'll be honest with you. There's one thing I don't like about the Mogador. It's waiting to click the left mouse button again. So sometimes I just keep clicking it, and I figure whenever it's ready, it'll fire shells, right? I don't love the 7-second reload, but I can deal with it because I feel like it does really well. 15.4 km range, and that's with a bunch of perks thrown at it. You don't need that long of a range on this thing. If you had it out to 13, 14, you'd be okay, but I like having that. We talked about Skada's security blanket with the smoke in the Yugumo. Range is mine in the gunboat destroyers. I like range. Torpedo launchers are weird on this thing. It has a 3 and a 2 launcher on each side that are dedicated to their sides. So you can only put out 5 torps per side, but you can do that on both sides. So for a total of 10, 8 kilometer range. This thing gets seen from space with a 7.5K detection range. So the 8 km range is really for surprising people, right? You're going to roll up on them and mug them in an alley, and that's about that. AA rating is deplorable at 27. That's 20 points worse than the Udaloi I looked at on my previous slide. Speed's pretty good. I love the speed, and the reason why the speed is great on the Mogador is not because of its natural speed of 45.7, which is fast, and that's with, again, a few perks. But it's got a 54.8 boosted speed because instead of an 8% boost on the French destroyers, you get a 20% boost when you hit your turbo on these destroyers. So it is an absolute gas to hit that thing and be rolling around at 55 knots and blasting people from 14, 13, 15 kilometers away. Again, 20% speed boost module. I mentioned that in the equipment. And the reload booster is super useful. If you can get to where you're good at picking the right targets and using those reload boosters at the right time, Mogador is a speedy murder boat, as I described it in the left-hand panel. Skada, what do you think about the Mogador?
I haven't played it. As well, I can't get myself past the Vakaline. I absolutely hate that boat, and I don't want to play it, and I don't want to give them free XP to get onto the La Fantastique. So what I do know about Mogador is that we fought a lot of them in clan battles last season with 9s. It's a very strong gunboat. Even with that 7-second reload, right? It has reload booster. So, it's gun DPM. You have to factor in reload booster usage, right? And so,
right.
It's got crazy fast torps. 75 knots is a fast torp out before the Euros were in the game, right? And
yeah,
and it's a crazy fast boat. They're hard to hit. I can think of times last season in ranked. I play a lot of Battleship, but I remember a match specifically where a Mogador was harrying me, and I was in the Roma, and it was not fun to try to hit him, right? Because if you know what you're doing and you don't want to be hit in a boat like that, you're not going to be by a Battleship. You can turn out and do stuff and move around. So. It's a really strong gunboat. I'm sure they're going to be out there in that mode.
Yeah, you'll be seeing Mogadors, I think, for sure. The thing we talked about with the Bronze League stuff, why didn't I play my sign-op? Well, I have a 10-point captain on sign-op. I have a 6-point captain on my Mogador because I kind of worked through this line pretty quickly. And so my Kleber has like a 15-point captain on it, and I didn't have a backfill captain for Mogador. So French Santa Claus is my Mogador captain, and I'd like to get him up to 12, 14 points before really seeing this thing personally out in competitive. I am sitting on a big pile of free captain XP. I'm not sure I'm going to spend it on Mogador, but that is one thing that would cause me to hesitate a little bit to take this thing out. And Skada, your comment about making sure you're using the 7 or the reload booster when you think about maximum damage output. The Mogador beats the Z46 by 2200 damage without using reload booster, and then you can use that reload booster as often as it's available to you. So that is worth commenting on. All right, man. I wanted to point out we are 3 for 3 tech tree boats only right now for silver. So, or 4 for 4, excuse me. Tech tree boats only. So let's see what you got at number 1. Kid.
Yeah, so this is a premium and it's a tier 8.
Yeah.
That's weird. Pick. So I picked the Kid. I hadn't played Kid in a long time. I've had Kid for a long time as a premium. Last ranked season, they put out the missions for the Kid where you could get Leroy Jenkins, real historical U.S. Navy sailorman who served on the Kid in the 50s or 60s or something. 70s maybe? I don't know. He served on the Kid.
I think in World War II. I think...
No, he was not. He's not that old.
Is it Vietnam or something? I'll look it up while you're talking.
I think it was like post Korea. Anyway, he served on the Kid, and then he worked on the ship as a museum ship down in Lake Pontchartrain down in New Orleans. So they had this mission they put in the game, and it coincided with that season. And I was like, well, I want the 10-point version of Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah.
And so took him. I was like, well, I'll take the Kid out because if you had the Kid, you could get the 10-point version and easier or something. I don't remember. It's always that way. If you have some premium, usually the mission's a little easier. And I was like, I will be using it in ranked and I will play it. And if you look at my stats on WoW's numbers for that season in the Kid, I'm super unicum. It's like insane how well I did in this boat. It probably has more to do with the competition that was kind of late in the ranked season. Like by then it was like most of the good players had moved up, and I'm playing in bronze, right? That was bronze league where I was farting around. But it's a good boat. And why is it a good boat? It's a Fletcher at tier 8. Fletcher's an amazing destroyer, right? I don't have the Fletcher yet. I know the Fletcher's an amazing destroyer. And so the Kid is a tier 8 Fletcher that you've removed one rack of torpedoes from and replaced it with AA mounts. And by the way, it has a heal. It's the only United States destroyer, premium or otherwise, that comes with a heal. So I threw a good captain. I threw my U.S. destroyer captain on this and went to town in it. And it's got great concealment, 5.8. It's fast enough, but it has speed boost. It has defensive AA boost on top of that 56 rating, and you can shoot down planes with this thing, and it's effective at it. The downside is from my point of view, is it's not a true torpedo boat, right? It's not like the Fletcher, which is more of a hybrid because you're down that one rack. So you only have one rack with 55 knot torpedoes, which is like when I start joking that I'm just putting sea mines in the water. But boy, those 5x1 127s that shoot at 3.3 seconds, at least with my spec, they rock rough and stuff. I would get into caps against Yugumos and just destroy them. You get it really with anything. Like you get into caps, those guns are great. And if somebody started beating on me, I could pop a heal and they couldn't. So that's why it's my number 1 pick. Is it a number 1 pick for everybody? Probably not. I've got a lot of destroyers that I can use in this silver. And we'll talk about that with honorable mentions, stuff that people would have on their list that I didn't. But I just really like this boat right now. Like I'm really fond of it right now.
Yeah, I don't have a kid, so I can't speak to this one from experience. But man, did I get the play-by-play from you multiple times when you were like, "Hey, I just killed half the enemy team," and then they gave me a free I don't know what. But it just seemed like every time you were out there, you were just capping things, killing ships, and putting up 6-figure damage numbers and Krakens. So
it was insane. I don't know if I had a Kraken or anything, but it was a lot of damage and multiple kills and high calibers and Confederates. And first blood, a lot of first bloods. It was a lot of awards, and but you know what they gave me for it? They gave me steel. That's what they gave me for it.
There you go. Yeah, I knew you were getting prizes, right? And that's the cool thing too, is you went out and you did that in randoms where you were playing without question up tiers, right? So can this tier 8 scrap with tier 9s? I think at least in randoms you proved it can. So
In
I'll be
ranked, yeah,
interested.
yeah. I fought 9s just fine with this because it's a Fletcher.
Yeah, it
Like,
does
and it
great.
has a heal.
And you've got it at a 3.3 second reload. I have my Fletcher at 4 seconds. So you've done something there, I think, to
I'm probably
improve
running
that.
BFT, and
Yeah.
if see the problem is I'm using Bull Halsey as my U.S. destroyer captain, and he's like 17 or 18 points right now.
Mm,
And because my intent for him once right now he's on Benson, but his plan, his career goal is to be a gearing captain. I
right.
probably won't build gearing for guns because I like torp boats. I'll probably build gearing for torps. So
Gearing
like,
builds nicely that way too.
but like right now, if I really wanted to just go nuts, I would totally put Fearless Brawler on him for this boat or for any US. Now that they removed the debuff from Fearless Brawler that ruined your concealment, and
Yeah.
now it's just like, no, if you're seeing your guns go faster, it would be great. That reload would be even lower. I'm guessing at that 3.3, I have BFT. I'm probably running BFT because I had been using that captain on like Mahan, and he's been moving up the tiers, so it makes sense that I would have BFT on him.
Yeah, no, I just thought I'd comment. That's really fast. 3.3 is really fast, so that's rad. Yeah, that's great. That's a solid pick for number 1 for you. And for me, I went with Jutland, which is a shock. Fletcher belongs on this list, and I think I want to talk about Fletcher before we're done because I really wanted to pick 4 ships, and Fletcher's really great. The reason Jutland edged out Fletcher for me or anybody else essentially is that it has acoustics. We talked about the value of sensors and things like that at this tier, and I think they're worth a lot. Fletcher's got 113 millimeter guns, which is an absurd size. They have a 15K range, 4.5 second reload, 19 millimeter pen. So it's going to do okay. You can push it up to 23 if you do the IFHE. Torpedoes are serviceable at above 60 knots. They do 10K, and you're able to fire those with a huge window of detectability. Your conceal is just 5.7 in the Jutland. So Jutland is a great all-rounder. It does guns well, it does torpedoes well, and it does AA well. Look at that rating of 50, right? If an aircraft carrier is going to spot you, you're going to be in trouble. What it pays for, or what it pays for all of this with, is speed. The British boats are not fast. They don't have a turbo. So you're going to be trucking around at 35.7 knots as long as you don't touch the rudder. If you use the rudder, you're going to slow down even more. Acoustics, bad acoustics, but a lot of them, and they're often available. Torpedoes 3 knots, ships 3 knots. So those are not for helping you. I mean, you could charge smoke with them if you feel like your enemy is weak. I wouldn't recommend doing that as easily as I would with something like the Z46, which has a longer ship detect range. I think it's 5.5. You got smoke if you need it, and a lot of them, they're short smoke, so you can use those to either get the last little bit of damage or help yourself escape from a hairy situation. Hull repair on this is great. I talked about the hull repair on Udaloi, 112 seconds over 28 seconds, or 112 hit points over 28 seconds. This is double that plus a little bit more, but only over 10 seconds. So when you hit hull repair on Jutland, you heal fast. When you hit hull repair on Udaloi, you heal slow, but I think you actually heal more hit points on Udaloi. This is only 2,500 hit points, I think, on Jutland. You only get about 2,600 hit points. I think on Udaloi you get about 3,000. So it's kind of a trade-off there that makes those ships have their own unique flavor. Love the Jutland. We always joke that it's a soft J. It's the Jutland. Jutland's gun damage is right in there with Mogador. It's 136,000 versus Mogador's 137,000. Again, Mogador's got that reload boost. We don't want to discount that, but Jutland's guns are capable. And 19 or maybe even 23 millimeter HE pen, it's going to be enough to do well against light cruisers and destroyers. And with the British boats, you can light a fire or two if you don't go with IFHE. So I think the Jutland's a strong boat. Skada, what do you think about Jutland? I don't believe this is one that you have yet. Is that right?
No, I have the Lightning right now. I'm up to tier
Right,
8
that's right.
on the British line, so I haven't played the Jutland yet. But I like the Lightning. I like the characteristics of the line. So yeah, I know you like it, and yeah, I think it's probably totally serviceable.
Honey Badger in our clan is another big fan of it, and I think of him as a skilled player. I like to talk ships with. So I originally didn't like the Jutland, and he said, "No, dude, you're wrong. It's good." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to do the same thing I did when Potato Quality told me the Haida was wrong or was good. I'm going to go find out why." And yeah, I think Jutland. When you get to Jutland, I think you'll like it. I liked the Lightning a lot. I think you'll like Jutland as well when you get up there, which shouldn't be long if you're.
Yeah, we'll have
online.
to. I'll have to take it out this weekend on my pirate account.
Oh yeah, that's true. You're a pirate. We got Skada's acting like a pirate today. I do want to talk about Fletcher. Fletcher is incredible, and I made an entire slide about it because I feel like I deserve 4 ships, and so I'm going to call this my honorable mention slide. I think after this we have an actual honorable mention slide. Yeah. So Fletcher probably should have been a real pick. I probably will be more likely to run my Fletcher than my Mogador because my Mogador has a 6-point captain. My Fletcher has a 17-point captain. And I have a 20-point captain, I believe, or maybe a 19 on my gearing. That's how much I like the Fletcher. I'm looking at this list now, and I'm thinking it was dumb of me to not make this my number 2 pick. It's got really long smoke. The U.S. ships, especially the destroyers, have really, really long smokes. So if somebody else is spotting something for you or a battleship is close enough, you guys can absolutely heat them up for like over a minute 40 or something from smoke. I don't know what the actual number is. You guys should look that up yourself. Very high damage potential. Look at this. Oh, I did put this chart in here. This is the chart I've been reading off to you guys. Fletcher's gun damage is better than Mogador's. Everybody fawns over that Mogador gun damage. Fletcher's is better. It's better. Period. Now, obviously, Mogador's reload booster is going to add something to that, but that's not an always available consumable. And it has a pretty long reload, 5.8 detectability for being really stealthy, and then 70 knot torpedoes, 69 knot torpedoes that go 10 kilometers. Dr. Evix or Drevix says that we are sleeping on Chung Mu. He's exactly right. Chung Mu is just like a Fletcher, but instead of the Fletcher torps, it's got deep waters, which are really, really low detect. So when those torps are screaming towards a battleship, they have very limited time to dodge them unless there's some acoustics at play that's helping them spot it. Because Chung Mu is a Fletcher class ship. You can go watch some of the videos on my YouTube channel if you want to see some good games in the Chung Mu. I am a huge fan of Chung Mu, so I recommend that boat almost as readily as Fletcher. The reason I lean on Fletcher over Chung Mu is because I can torp anything in a Fletcher, and Chung Mu has limited targets, and I like that flexibility. So that's my take on that. Skada, you've talked a little bit about Fletcher. I don't know if you have anything to throw onto the pile as far as comments on this boat, but
yeah, I mean, I like the kid. It's a tier 8 Fletcher with a heel.
Yeah.
I have my own honorable mention, so I could have done. I love so many tier 9 destroyers, so I want to quickly touch upon some that didn't make my list that totally could. And the list could be these boats instead. Benham. I love my Benham. It is a torpedo vomiting death boy. I used it a little bit in competitive. I missed that it doesn't have sensors, but man, do I like playing the Benham. I actually really enjoy the Benham more in ranked, though, than I do in competitive. One thing people sleep on with the Benham, though, is its guns. Its guns don't, as I said before, its guns don't suck. Benham's guns don't suck. They're pretty good. People think of it as a torp boat because it is, and you don't really want to get it engaged, a long-term gun engagement, but its guns aren't bad. They're totally usable. I like Z44. Most people, I think, don't because it's a coal boat and it's weird. It's a German destroyer that doesn't have hydro, but it also vomits torps that are 12-kilometer range, and it reloads every minute, and I really liked it as a torp boat. One from your list of DD hunters that I think should be on there, and I bring this up because it was Potato Quality's top pick for silver destroyers, was the Friesland. The Friesland is a DD hunter, first and foremost, with its great smoke and hydros, and its absolute murder boat guns, right?
Yeah,
it has hydros and murder boat guns, and so it's really good at cap contesting. But then you can also kind of switch over and do another one of my honorable mention, the Kitakaze. I love Kitakaze.
Yes,
I'm really good in Kitakaze. I took Kitakaze out the other day in the qualifier, and it was one of the few boats that I won 2 matches in a row in because it's so good and I'm good in it. I love so many of the tier 9. I don't have Paolo Emilio. You could take Paolo Emilio out and screw around in ranked. I have Felix Schultz, the new tier 9 German. I actually like Felix Schultz.
Oh no!
I like that its AP hits hard.
I'll tell you what. I was scrapping a
tons
Felix
of great
Schultz.
boats.
Yeah, I was scrapping a Felix Schultz in my Bagration, and I was perfectly bow on the other day. And Felix Schultz said, "Don't worry about it. I'm going to take 5K off you every salvo anyway." And I know I'm down a tier, but that boat has excellent AP pen angles. I'm glad you brought up Benham. Or I'm sorry, not Benham. What is the one? Friesland and Benham, actually. But I'm glad you brought up Friesland. Heavy McD, friend of the show. You can catch his show at twitch.tv/Heavy McD. He plays ships and other games there as well. He was like, if you don't put Friesland on there, I don't know what's wrong with you. And I said, it's not going to make the cut. I struggle to make Friesland a boat that I can influence the game in heavily, because it does that slow burn damage unless you're shooting a target with a small HP pool like a destroyer. You're right, though. The acoustics on the Friesland are worth mentioning. I just pulled it up here. The acoustics... I pulled it up to the wrong screen. Let me go to equipment. The acoustics are 3.5K torps, 5-kilometer ships. So with smoke and acoustics, you can absolutely do that German destroyer trick with it. It is a very, very capable boat. I miss the torpedoes, but I don't need them to be happy. So, again, I think Friesland's worth mentioning. It's worth taking out. Kitakaze, absolutely an honorable mention. I was going to bring up if you didn't, so I'm glad you did. Tier 9 is the tech tree in particular is absolutely flush with great ships, and it feels like that's less true for the other classes, for battleships and cruisers, but maybe we'll find out that I'm wrong on that as we go throughout the night. But there's just so many good Tier 9 DDs.
It's a true fact that the Tier 9 tech tree destroyers, a lot of them are really, really good. And it's also a true fact that the Tier 9 tech tree cruisers are almost all universally hot trash.
Yeah, I think I agree with you fully. And I wanted to almost say that, but then you said it flatly. So I think, or very directly, I think I have to agree. And so it was really hard to narrow my destroyer list. I could go and sing praises of half a dozen ships, and we did.
Yeah. I didn't even touch on Ostergotland, which I really like as well. And it has crazy fast torps. It's like Skada. I love Ostergotland. Yeah. I haven't played Chungmu yet, but I like Chungmu. I like the idea of Chungmu. I think the only destroyers that I have in my port at Tier 9 that I wouldn't play... I don't have Tashkent, but I probably wouldn't play Tashkent.
People are going to play Tashkent. We saw it in ranked clan battles. But I understand why folks might not want to choose that. If you're, again, it's that solo thing. If you're up against a low detect DD, that's going to be tough. Errol the Red, thank you for the follow. I wanted to chime in and throw that out. Really appreciate it. Glad to have you here amongst the crew. Scott, do you have more?
Yeah, it's the hotness now from the dockyard, but I don't really like ZF6.
What? We always like the dockyard ships.
Yeah.
It's true, though. We generally do. I don't have mine yet, so I won't speak on it. But when we get it, we'll make sure to BS about it on stream. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'll dive into my cruiser first, my third cruiser. See what we got here. Okay, so I put Kronshtadt on as my number 3. I think we're going to be unsurprised by the cruiser picks. We talked about ships for clan battles when clan battles was Tier 9. You can find that video on my YouTube channel. Swing on over to youtube.com/c/Clyde Plays. Now we can just say it. I wish that /C wasn't in there, but I think that stands for channel. And at youtube.com/c/Clyde Plays. And you can look for that video where we talked about ranked or clan battle ships, and you'll find similar picks on that list. Kronshtadt is good. 305mm guns can smash through anything. Really great bow armor. It's a tanky boy. Long reloads, just like all the super cruisers, 16.3 seconds. HE pen of 51mm. So all around, pretty good guns as you'd expect. Excuse me, on a super cruiser like this. AA is all right. 59 is not an amazing figure, but it's okay. But you do get 4 charges of defensive AA with it. Speed is fine at 33.5, but not a big deal. Conceals 12.7, which honestly is better than I think this ship should have. When you consider that, some of these other cruisers, look at Hindenburg at Tier 10, something like 14, 15 kilometers, right? I feel like Kronshtadt feels like a boat like that. But 12.7 is acceptable. Here's the thing about Kronshtadt. It has 71,000 hit points. 71,000 hit points. That's 10,000 more than Alaska, as an example. So what would you, like my comment down there says, what would you do with an extra 10,000 hit points? You've strapped a destroyer to the side of your boat as armor. Like, that's insane. Not a Tier 9 destroyer, but you get the idea. 10,000 is a lot. I can take another Citadel from a battleship and still have the same number of hit points as my neighbor who's taken the same amount of damage as me up to now. So Kronstadt's just tough, dude. Long long distance radar, 12 kilometers, as all the Russian cruisers that have radar have. You can go with spotting plane or defensive AA. I would recommend actually going with defensive AA there, because at long ranges, the Kronstadt's guns are a little wonky. So you're not going to sniper people in the Kronshtadt. So don't try. Hull repairs is pretty good. I think I have some other hull repair numbers in here as we go. We'll talk about those when we get there. 426 over 28 seconds is a lot of hit points. So it's like 400 times 30, roughly being the math. You get a lot of hit points back as long as you've got that much light damage that you can heal. 80-second reload on that is pretty standard. Nothing really exciting there. Kronshtadt is, again, it's a little wonky in the gun department when it comes to accuracy, but it hits hard, and I think it can take a lot of damage with 71k hit points. Skada, what do you think of Crony?
Kronshtadt made my list as well. I never used to like Kronshtadt, and then I learned to like it more recently. My Kronstadt's built out a little bit different than yours. In fact, I'm kind of running the lighthouse build on Kronshtadt, and my concealment's not that good, but I have mine set up to hit a little harder, and I have 37 seconds of contiguous radar on mine.
Oh wow,
right?
Nice.
Which is just comical with a 12 kilometer radar, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I like Kronshtadt for this. I used it a lot. It might be the number one cruiser that I used in ranked last season. I think I played well over 25 matches in it. I think my win rate was over 50% for what that's worth. I mean, for me, that's good.
Yeah.
But I really, and it's a strong boat. If you go look, like, it's got 71,000 hit points. Georgia Tier 9 battleship has 74,000 hit points. Iowa, if you don't have the upgraded hull, has 68,000 hit points. So the number of hit points that this thing has is comical. It doesn't have battleship armor, but it's damn close.
Yeah.
So I like the Kronshtadt. Another fun tidbit about Kronshtadt, and I believe this is true, I'm going to throw it out there and talk like an expert. Kronshtadt is one of the premiums that has been a World of Warships that was available for the shortest amount of time. I think maybe the only other thing that was available for less time was Kitakami. But Kronshtadt was available in a very small window when it was available. You don't see a ton of Kronstadts. It's not like Alaska, where Alaska was really available for quite a long time. Kronshtadt was available for a short period of time, and limited aficionados enjoy it, I think. I happen to have Kronshtadt because I'm a whale that went ham on Christmas crates.
Did you get it after it was unavailable? Is that when you got it?
Oh yeah, it wasn't available when I joined the game.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it was that short.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was it was available for less time than Smolensk. And people always think Smolensk was here and gone. Kronshtadt was here and gone even quicker.
Yeah, that's true. It was a free XP boat, if I remember right, and I did cash in and get it. I was obviously, that's why it's on my list. I like to speak about boats that I've actually played. I don't want to the specularium here, but
we both like Kronshtadt. The downsides of playing Tier 9 super cruisers is how they wrecked them with the captains. You can't tank in them anymore. They burn forever. And you can't take fire mitigation and things like you used to, which really makes me mad. It really ruined the Alaska for me. Kronshtadt less so for whatever reason. But,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's my number 3 is Kronshtadt. I think it's going to be a solid pick. I think you're going to see him out there. I don't think it's an uncommon ship, but Skada's comment about how briefly it was available, I think it's one of those boats that you'll definitely see, but maybe not in every match. So anyway, my pick for number 3. Let's see what Skada's got here.
Yeah, I'd throw out there that if you're in playing ranked silver this season and you see a Kronshtadt, say hi to Clyde or me.
You think it's that rare, really? Oh, that's interesting.
You don't see a lot of them.
I'll watch for it, I guess. Yeah.
You don't see a lot of them.
All right, let's talk. Go ahead.
My number 3 pick is Montpelier / Cleveland. So Montpelier is a premium version of the Cleveland. It only has a couple of slight differences. The reason I picked it is because when the first season, not ranked season 2 as they call it, but the first season when we started doing these ranked sprints, since ranked got revitalized, I used Montpelier to rank out in bronze that season and get up to silver, which is like weird. It's, why would you use a tier 8 US light cruiser? Well, I used the Montpelier over the Cleveland because I could put my Worcester captain on it.
Yeah, premium status. Yeah,
because it's premium, right? There's a couple things that are different. Like you see under my random notes, the Montpelier can't equip a fighter, darn it. It can only do radar or spotter. I don't know why you'd ever not just do radar, but the Cleveland can take a fighter, Montpelier can't. But the stats, everybody knows the Cleveland. It's a great tier 8 light cruiser, and Montpelier's the same boat, just from stupid whale things that Skada buys. So it's like 4x3 152s, 15.6 range, 7-second reload, great AA. If you have to fight carriers, it's good at that. It's not a fast boat, but most of the cruisers in these tiers aren't unless you're French. But it's got pretty good concealment, and it's got good radar, and it's got good hydros. So it's a great support boat. I remember the season that I played it a lot. I would bury myself on an island, as you do in a U.S. light cruiser, and I would support our destroyers that were taking caps by using sensors and firing HE to effect. And I would, once the enemy was on the run, then I would get out and open water gunboat on other ships, trying to make sure I wasn't the guy that the battleships wanted to shoot at, right? Kind of being that second row shooter that you can do as you pester people and light them on fire. So I really like the Montpelier and Cleveland, and so that's why it was my number 3 pick. But again, your mileage may vary. It's just something that I had a lot of success with in ranked a couple seasons ago.
I will say some nice things about Cleveland. I can't speak to Montpelier because my whale status is not quite as whaley as yours, but Cleveland is a really solid boat. Recently got, I think it was a radar duration nerf is rolling out, so it's losing 2 seconds of radar, something like that. It wasn't a huge deal, but what you talked about earlier, being that DD support is really great. It's a really great thing that Cleveland can do. 9-kilometer range on the radar, 4x3 152s. That's 1,252 millimeter shells with reasonable accuracy at close enough, right? And then a 7-second reload on that. So if you got about my Cleveland has a 29.7 second radar. So that's 30 seconds. You can fire 4 or 5 times in there as long as you time it right. That's enough to really light up a destroyer. If you've ever been Clevelanded or Montpeliered in a DD, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if you've ever been the cruiser doing that to the DD. Very good close support ship. You're right about not wanting to get into a tangle with battleships. You want to be that second most interesting target. We talk about that a lot on this stream and on our YouTube videos as well. So like, you definitely don't want to be focused by a battleship when you're within your firing range, 15K or so, because they will delete you. So you're going to really want to make sure you're using geography and stuff. But I actually don't think this is a bad pick. Cleveland they did some tier 8 ranked back before the ranked shuffle years ago. And Cleveland wound up, at least back then, times have changed, of course. We've got new ships in the game. Things have changed about how the game is fought. But Cleveland was more popular than Baltimore back then. And Baltimore has the bigger guns because Cleveland's rate of fire was higher. And what we wanted the tier 8 cruisers to do was to take out destroyers. And Cleveland's just better at it. So I think this is a great pick. I don't know, kind of my final thoughts on there. Scott, anything else to add before we bounce along?
No, I mean, there's a lot of people would say you can take 8s or 9s, so why would you take a tier 8? And I would just say that I think Cleveland is better than Seattle.
Exhibit A.
I think Baltimore's better than Buffalo, pound for pound, and I think Cleveland and Montpelier are more fun to play than Seattle. So given my choice, I would take this over Seattle, and even though Seattle probably has more hit points. But I just don't like the Seattle, and I don't like the way the Buffalo play. I don't really care for either of those.
Seattle's pretty bad. I don't know if I'd take Baltimore over Buffalo. I'd want to look at that one really closely, make sure there wasn't a hit point reason or some other reason to take Buffalo over Baltimore. But I really like the Baltimore. I have a lot of fun in the Baltimore. I don't have a lot of fun in the Buffalo. But if it comes down to just winning or losing, and if the Buffalo made me win more, I'd probably go take the Buffalo. So I'd want to look at that one closely. But I totally agree on the Seattle line of thinking there. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna bounce up to my number 2 pick for cruisers. I went with Brindisi. You kind of mentioned this earlier. You said, I guess you could take the Brindisi if you're leveling that line. I am leveling that line, and I really like the Brindisi because of its sharky play style. My comment there, sharky, blah, blah. That's exactly what I'd like to do in this boat. I don't know that you're going to see a lot of people agreeing with me on this pick, but those 203s with the sap are absolutely epic against the right targets. And you can definitely use the speed of this boat, which is 38.5 knots in a tier 9 cruiser, to get into places where you're going to be a problem for the enemy team. I love this conversation that's going on about Cossack over here in chat. I'd love to be engaging that. I'm going to keep talking about the Brindisi. I'll catch up on that later because I agree Cossack's a solid pick. One thing that sucks about the Brindisi is the gun reload. 20 seconds is the base when you first get the boat. I've got mine down to 17.1 with Captain and other perk trickery, but it's a slow firing boat at tier 9, and it's not really a super cruiser. The hit points aren't on par with what you're looking at with Kronshtadt or Alaska or any of these other boats. Torpedoes, yeah, it's got them. They're slow. You're not going to find these torpedoes being big game effectors, but you have them if you need them, so that's cool. Defensive, or the AA rating is pretty good at 75, so I think especially against tier 8 carriers, you're going to be pretty safe against that kind of attack. Again, we talked about the speed; it's pretty quick. Concealment's not low, but not high. It's about 2 clicks higher than I want it to be, but I think it's fair to put it at 12.6 based on what this boat can do when it gets behind you. Let's not forget about the engine oil smoke, the high-speed oil smoke. This is a great trick for getting safe from battleships. You can pop that smoke and then get your tail pointed towards them when they're going to get your side, for citadels and things. So definitely a useful trick to get out of jail free. If you've got a great ally who's spotting for you, you can hit that smoke and then really punish battleships and other cruisers, even destroyers. The sap is great against pretty much all targets. With battleships, you want to make sure you're hitting the superstructure, but other than that, all bets are kind of off. Spotter or fighter, choose spotter. I don't think the fighter is a very good consumable in this game right now. It's just not that useful. So choose the spotter. It's going to get you a little extra range, which I think I call out on here, but a little more gun range never hurts you with a boat like this where you're trying to get into a compromising position for your enemies. Hull repair on this one's 268 for 28 seconds. Standard 80-second reload, so nothing flashy there. 268 is a fine number, but yeah, so I think Brindisi is a solid pick. I don't know if I think it's like optimal, but looking at tier 9 cruisers like Scott and I were talking earlier, it's kind of hard to find tier 9 cruisers that I just really think are super strong and I love in this game right now. Skada, what do you think about Brindisi for 9? I know you've played this one.
I like Brindisi. I don't remember if it was really Amalfi or Brindisi where I finally felt like that Italian cruiser line was worth my time investment. I did enjoy playing at Brindisi a lot in randoms. I never played it. I don't think I've ever played it in a competitive mode. But pretty much echo all the stuff you said about it. I think it plays French to me, so it doesn't have the range of the French cruisers, but it's fast and you can waggle. Sap hits really hard, but I always feel like I'm missing out by not setting fires on people.
You gotta hit with the sap every time for that to be.
Yeah, but it's a good, and it really is. As far as tech tree 9s, I think if you look at the newer lines, Brindisi's really good. You remember me cursing the gods when I was playing through Drake, but Drake has some good features about it compared to other older tech tree 9s. So I think Brindisi's a solid pick. If it's something that you're comfortable with playing, all the better.
Yeah, you're right on that. I hadn't thought about Drake. I think I'm on tier 7 on that line because I'm playing that one slow because I don't like it very much. But people, speaking of Seinfeld references, if GMAC is still here, hate the Drake. People like the Drake because it hits really hard with that HE. I think it's a pretty strong pick. For people who are high skill, I don't think that's a good boat for the faint of heart. But I think if you're good at Drake, you're good at Drake, and you're going to put it to good use. But we can talk about that, I guess, if we get to honorable mentions or if it makes one of our lists. It didn't make mine. I can spoil that one for you now because I don't have that boat, and so I'm not going to recommend anything I haven't played myself.
Yeah, it didn't make mine either.
All right, we're going to bump over to Skada's number 2 pick, Alaska from the U.S.
Probably
line.
Alaska, I think. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Or in my case, in my case, it's Alaska B because while I have Alaska B, I also have Alaska, but I never kitted out the stock Alaska. I didn't want to, so I use Alaska B because I like the way it looks. It's Alaska. I don't know what to say about Alaska that anybody who's been playing Warships for the last couple of years doesn't already know. Alaska is a really strong tier 9 American super cruiser with great guns, great range. The reload sucks, but it's basically a pocket battleship. It's got great AA for what it is. It's not fast, but it maneuvers well. It's got pretty good concealment considering how hard it hits, and it's got good
Yes.
radar, hydros, and do spotters. You can take anything you want on it. I don't really feel like doing a soliloquy on the Alaska. I think people know what the Alaska is. You're gonna see gobs of them in rank. We just fought tons of them in clan battles.
Yeah.
You see them in tier 9 ranked. It's a great super cruiser. I think if you look at Azuma, Kronshtadt, Alaska, and Siegfried slash Agir, I think pretty much everybody would agree that Alaska is the king of the tier 9 super cruisers. I don't think I left any of them out. Now that said, that's just because that new Dutch line isn't in game yet, because it's 8, 9, and it's 10. They're tech tree boats. The 8, 9, and the 10 are all super cruisers, and the 10 has freaking Scharnhorst guns, and I can't wait to get it. But we're not talking about that this stream.
No, not this stream, but the time will come when we BS about those boats too, and even get to play them. I'm super excited about that line too. Rather than rebut or talk about this, I'm going to go over and talk about number one pick, which is Alaska. And I don't even like picking Alaska for number one. First of all, I love this boat. I do, for all the reasons that you mentioned, and probably a couple of different ones. But like at the same time, it feels kind of like a boring pick for your number one, right? It's the best of the super cruisers. There's literally nothing to dislike about this boat. I even let it back in. I parked it backwards for my picture here just to make it seem a little more interesting. The Alaska's guns are fantastic. They reload in a year and a half, 17.6 seconds. I have reliably, you can bow pen and knock the turrets out of John Bart with this thing. Like over and over and over again. It's just great for some reason. AA defense is high, speed's fine. Conceal is right on par with Kronshtadt. 10,000 less hit points than Kronshtadt. Actually, I think 11,000 less. It's got acoustics or turbo AA. If you're seeing a lot of carriers, switch to turbo AA. If you're not, keep the acoustics on. You're going to want to avoid torpedoes that are coming at you. But you've also got radar to find the guys who are torpedoing you. So, Scott says I don't want to give a big, or Skada says I don't want to give a big soliloquy about the Alaska. So I'm trying to hit these quick because I kind of agree. I don't think it's the most interesting pick because it's a well-duh pick, but at the same time, it's the well-duh pick for a reason. It's just really strong. Stronger hull repair than we've seen on Brindisi as well. 364 hit points a second for 28 seconds. I must have a perk here that brings that down to 76 seconds. I think the base there is 80 on the Alaska, or a flag or a signal or something. So yeah, not much more to add to what Scott has said. Alaska is my number one pick because I think it's going to be reliable. It's going to be very popular. It has all the tools. It's got all the sensors. It's got great guns. It's just really strong. I'd like to pick something else if I could find something else, but I think the Alaska is going to be strong. And I think if I'm playing cruisers, there's a healthy chance I'm going to take it out. Scott, any final Alaska thoughts?
Played it a lot in clan battles, and I learned to hate it. And that's probably why I'm less is up on it. When your radar is on cooldown, you are a giant DD gunboat magnet, right? Kitakazes, Mogadors, anybody who is a high rate of fire, even high rate of fire cruisers, they chew these up now because of the lack of survivability skills. And I got to the point in clan battles last season where I was like, I won't go out in this. I don't care what we play. I'm not going to take this boat out. I didn't want to play it.
You did get fed up with it. Yeah.
I was mad. I that's why I was kind of more into Kronshtadt for whatever reason, but this boat kind of made me mad. And I like Alaska in randoms. It's strong in randoms, but I did not enjoy it in competitive last time. And while I do think it's highly rated and you will see a lot of them, you won't really see me in one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And sometimes, like we talked about earlier on in the stream, if you're not comfortable or you're not having fun in a boat, don't let some jerk on the internet say this is the best boat in the meta and you have to take it. I disagree with that statement. Just take what you're comfortable in, what you're having fun in, and to a certain extent what you're winning in. But it should be an intersection of those three things, right? Let's get you into something you're having a good time in, and because you can win in lots of boats. It doesn't have to be the Alaska. Like I said, I think there's some reasons to take Alaska, but if you've got a reason not to, free country, free world, whatever, take whatever you want, and get out there and win in something else. Totally agree. All right, let's get into your number one pick. I'm curious, if it's not Alaska, what's it going to be? Oh, Crony.
Yeah,
taking it for you.
we already mentioned this, right? So Kronshtadt, and we already talked about Kronshtadt a lot, but I'll just cover it really quick what I
Sure.
like about it.
Yeah.
Again, mine's set up different than yours. I went with like the lighthouse build on it with the crazy, like I took concealment off of it and put consumable expert on it, and like I ran out my radar to 36.3 seconds, I guess it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But I still have a 14.1 conceal, which isn't horrible. I like I more comfortable in this boat right now than Alaska. The one thing that I miss is hydros.
Hmm.
In fact, playing it the other day, I know I got torped in it, and I knew the torps were coming, and I just didn't. I mean, I didn't have good. I knew they were going to be coming, but because I was fighting a Benham, and you're just like, there's always torps coming. But
Yes.
I don't want to go on it too much more. I just really like this boat. It's really tanky. So I know when I loaded into that match the other day. When I loaded into that match the other day, one of the other team, there was only one cruiser on each team. It was Kronshtadt on my team. The other team had an Ibuki.
Oh wow. Okay.
And a guy on our team says to all chat, "Oh, good, we've got the battleship in the cruiser spot." And
Yeah.
that's kind of how it felt. So yeah, I like this ship. I want to quickly talk about some honorable mentions at cruiser that are in my port while we're here.
Can I ask you a question first, though?
Sure.
Earlier I trashed on taking spotter plane. Do you take that because you don't think you see a lot of aircraft carriers instead of your defensive A, or do you take it because you're able to use it to effect?
Yes, on both accounts, from my point of view.
Okay.
In ranked last season with the maps that we got a lot, and the fact that I never really saw competent aircraft carriers or worried about them, I took spotter plane because at the start of a match, inevitably I would be able to peep somebody, and with spotter plane you can shoot like 20. And so I'm firing HE early in the match, right? So like and it has crazy HE fire chance. Like
it
people,
does. It
has great AP, but like I don't use the AP until like mid match. Like I'm exclusively using HE with that boat and burning people down and getting huge damage numbers, and contributing that way. And so I will throw up that spotter plane at the very start of the match and blap away at whatever high. Usually it's like somebody who's in like a Pommern that isn't built for concealment, because they have to put all their points into secondary stuff, and you pick them out, early in the match. So I'll throw the spotter plane up so I can lob shots at them, and its guns are good for that because they're Russian guns. The velocity's there, so you don't have to try hard.
That's a fair point too. And the thing you mentioned there, I meant to bring up when I was talking about Kronshtadt, which is I use HE in this boat a lot. I think I feel like early in the match, I get a lot of 3,000 damage AP hits. Or if I put fires on people, I do better. So for me, I use a lot of high explosive rounds in Crony, and I recommend that you guys give it a try. If you think those 305s are just for doing citadels, they're not. It's also for burning folks up. So that's a good point to bring up. I'll have to try the spotter plane. Usually your recommendations are not too far in left field, so I might have to throw that on there and give it a shot and see how it goes for me. But let's get to those. Or go ahead if you got a thought.
I was just saying, I've practiced a lot with spotter the last year,
Same.
and so I'm more comfortable with it now. There was a time when I wouldn't touch it because I never felt like I'd hit anything with it.
Yeah, but once you get a little bit of a handle on it, you can really get the hang of it. You can really do some work with it. All right, let's get to those honorable mentions. You had a thought or two there. What do you got?
Yeah, looking at my port, boats that I like at 8. I like the anchorage if you have it, as long as nobody wants you to use sensors. But I think anchorage is really cheesy, and I like anchorage. I've played well in it. Kutuzov I have in my port. Kutuzov's an all-time jerk boat. It's another 8 you can take out, and like Errol brought up in chat, like if you can take an overpowered 8 and that draws a mediocre 8 in on the other team, that's a huge boon. That's why one of the reasons probably why Kid felt real powerful to me, because it was drawing in some other bad 8. Cossack's a great pick for that same reason. Cossack's such a murder boat. But as far as cruisers go, like if you take one of the cheesy, like not in the game anymore cruisers like Kutuzov, Anchorage that a lot of people don't have, as long as nobody wants you to be radaring. As far as another 8 that I really like is the Mainz, the German German DPM monster, right? Mainz, I think, still is the highest DPM of all tier 8 cruisers, or mines, however you say it. It's a hipper hull with light guns it's a good ship if you get used to playing it. Again, no radar. As far as the super cruisers go, I really love Agir. I don't have Siegfried, but I really like Agir, and I enjoy Agir even more now, actually, after the captain rework. And I would rather actually play Agir than Alaska right now, but that's probably more my play style and affinity for how the Germans play. I don't know if there's any other premiums that I'd given. I'm not gonna recommend the Wukong.
Like
Not gonna
oddball premiums.
not gonna recommend the Cheshire. Not gonna recommend the Belfast 43. But yeah, and there's so many tier 8 premiums. There's not as many tier 9 premium cruisers, but some of those tier 8 premiums that I brought up are just really strong.
Yeah, those are good calls. I don't know if I'd be comfortable in the anchorage out there. It's got acoustics and smoke, which is great. Doesn't have the radar thing, right? So like you say, it's not going to provide sensors. Good HE, good AP, 15-second-ish reload, I think. So anchorage is solid. I think I'm not comfortable in the anchorage, even though you've pointed out to me in the past it's easy mode. I should be good at it, but I need to spend more time in that boat. So I wouldn't take that one out. You might think that if you don't have a Kronshtadt, you should try the Riga. Maybe you should. I don't know. I think I'd play the Riga if I was there, and I am actually on that line. But it only has 50,000 hit points, so it does everything the Kronshtadt does, slightly weaker. 220 millimeter guns instead of the 305s, 20,000 less hit points, less duration of radar, right? So Riga, I don't know if I think that's a solid replacement, but if I was working the line and I was there, I'd play Riga, and so I think because of that reason, you're going to see Rigas out there. I'd like to second your comment about Kutuzov. I think that's a pretty good pick. Somebody's going to take the Irian out there. I don't think you're going to see a ton of them, but I think Kutuzov you might see. It's got something like a 19-kilometer range.
Yeah, the range on Kutuzov's stupid.
Yeah, 19.1.
Really far.
Yeah, and it's got smoke and it's got acoustics, so you can be that guy who's further back, your second line guy, and just flaming up people like Alaska's who don't have radar anymore, right?
Got good torpedoes too.
8-kilometer torps, which means if you get in close, it's good at blapping. It's good at blapping destroyers, as well. And 950 meter per second. Shell velocity means that even at a longer distance, 17, 18, 19 kilometers, you're going to kind of hit what you click on. So Kutuzov's strong. It does not have a hull repair. That is a huge weakness of the Kutuzov. And be ready for that. Don't get close. Don't get Lazo'd in it, right? Like it's the tier 8 Lazo in my book, or the Lazo's the tier 7 Kutuzov. And it suffers from the same concerns. But if you
can I ask you,
Kutuzov, go ahead.
You brought up Riga, and I agree. I actually think Riga is really a strong boat as far as Czech Free boats go.
Yeah,
people are going to. Got a question for you though. Donskoi Rune.
I hate the rune. I hate the rune because my rune is cursed. I play it very well. I have a very high damage number in it for me. For Clyde, but I cannot win a game in the rune. I think somebody is going to be using the rune as a long-range fire spammer, and they're going to do good at it. It's not going to be me. I'm not going to play the rune. The other you asked about, hang on, what was it?
Donskoi.
Donskoi is actually pretty capable. The reason I don't love the Donskoi is its reload is long. So if you take a look at the Riga, 220 millimeter guns with 12.3 second reload. I don't have a captain on it right now, so that's what I'm looking at there. If I go to Donskoi, it's got 180s with a 11-second reload. Now it's putting out 12 rounds instead of 9 like on Riga. So you got to kind of do some math here and say, am I getting enough pen? Am I getting enough fires? Am I getting stuff? I like the Donskoi's radar better. Its radar lasts a little bit longer than Riga's, I think. Yeah, 10 seconds longer. 15 seconds on Riga, 25 seconds on Donskoi, again with no captains loaded on board. So Donskoi is going to be a better anti-DD radar. It's going to be a better cap contester, I think, than Riga. I think Riga is a tough boat, though. And so I wouldn't say, don't play the Riga, but Donskoi comes in with 43,000 hit points, so it's only 7K down from Riga. So those two, I think, are really competitive with one another. It kind of depends on what it is you're going to try to be getting done with Donskoi. So I don't know. That's kind of my read on that one. What are you thinking about Donskoi?
I just brought it up because when I saw we were talking about potato quality earlier, I saw he put out a YouTube video on his picks for silver. And he does like top 5s, but then he will have more like 7 or 8 boats. and so like I think like his 4th or 5th cruiser was Riga / Kronshtadt. Right, he had Alaska in there.
That makes sense.
He had Donskoi on his list. He had Agir / Siegfried, right? So some of those same boats that we've kind of been talking about. I was curious. I thought you liked Donskoi. I don't like Donskoi. Everything I love about Nevsky, Donskoi doesn't do.
Yes, I agree.
Because of that
Agree.
slow reload just kills me. And
Yeah.
so, but I would actually probably take Riga over Donskoi. I'm just more comfortable in Riga. I think Riga's tanky is all get out. It's not Petropavlov's tanky, but it's really good for a 9. But
Yeah,
I'm not going to take it because I have Kronshtadt.
Right, exactly. But I think if you're playing in the tech tree, or if you're working on your Riga, great pick. I think people will choose Riga over Donskoi because people love that Petro idea so much right now that they're going to say, well, Riga's just the tier 9 Petro. It's not really, but it is tanky, it is tough, it's got big old guns, it's going to do the job. I think Donskoi is fine. We didn't talk about it, but it's got 8-kilometer torps. They're not very fast. Donskoi has a lot of tools and tricks, but all of them are kind of mediocre. When you get to Nevsky, I shouldn't say mediocre, all of them are not overpowered. I'll say that. I think Donskoi is actually a pretty balanced boat. But when you get to Nevsky, it gets so much better. Your reload time cuts in half. Your radar is just as good, if not better. I can't remember the Nevsky torpedo situation, but
it has better. It has the torpedoes that reach as far. It might have one more tube per side. It's better.
Yeah, it's just better, right? Nevsky is just better, and of course it is. It's a tier up. But I wish Donskoi's reload was more like 8 seconds.
Yeah, it needs a 9-second reload.
It'd be really tempting at 8-9 seconds, whereas at 11, it's not as tempting to me. I do think I know Drevix, who's in chat with us right now. He played Donskoi a couple of times, I think. Tell me if I'm wrong. In clan battles last season. And did pretty well in it. We defended some caps, we did some things. The things that it brings to the game, it's got. But I don't know that I'd rush out to be like, yeah, Donskoi's my pick. I'll throw out Charles Martel as another pick. It's a tier 8 tech tree boat, which means I don't have a good captain on it, but I like the way it plays, and I wish there was a tier 9 boat that played like that, and there just isn't. The French boats don't have that capability. Brindisi's close, but it's still wrong. It doesn't shoot often enough, and it's sappy. I want a Charles Martel. I want a Zhao. I want that flavor of boat at tier 9, and there just isn't one.
Yeah, that's a rough one as somebody who likes that line because San Luis sucks. It's not. I don't like the San Luis at 9. It's one of those classic. Oof, the tier 9 tech tree boat is a bummer.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones where you really wish they would take that boat and like, oh hey, it's now a coal boat, and replace that tier 9 with a better tier 9 or something. But
that'd
that one's that's how I feel that way about Rune. Like I don't like the Rune at all. I like Hipper and I like Hindenburg a lot. I don't like Rune. You know how much I hated Rune.
Now that I say I wish there was a Zhao, I wish there was a Charles Martel. Rune is probably the closest boat to that.
It probably is because of the range.
Yeah, the range is good. The HE spamming is good. The reload's pretty good. Like I like to crap all over the Rune, but it's probably the boat I'm looking for when it comes to being a Charles Martel or a Zhao at that tier.
Yeah, and all I would say about Donskoi is if it wasn't for the radar, I would rather play like a Buki.
Ibuki's got longer torps. Ibuki's pretty stealthy. It's probably not too bad of a Zhao replacement, but everybody in the world hates Ibuki, so I should stop talking about how it has some positive perks. But I can see that. I can see wanting to go for that, rather, if you didn't have the sensors on Donskoi. I could get that. I can get behind that. All right, are we ready to talk battleships?
Yeah, unless we want to go into about 15 minutes on the Wukong, we probably should move on.
We've hit all the boats. Let's go to your first battleship pick. You've got the Alsace from France in slot 3. What do you think?
Well, I love the Alsace, so that's why it's there.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite tech tree battleships. I love the French battleship line. Again, I'll mention what Potato Quality did on this one. He said Alsace/Jean Bart. I will do the same thing. I didn't put it on my slide. But they don't play the same. Jean Bart is a tier 9 Richelieu. It's a different kind of boat. I like the Alsace, right? If you want to play a tier 8 Alsace, they just put the Flandre in game, right? So I love the Alsace. I like the way it plays. I love the way it handles. I love the way the guns work. I don't care that it doesn't have huge overmatchy guns. I like the way the guns feel. I like the way it plays. I just really like this boat. So, some of the stats, the 380s I mentioned, 20-kilometer range, the 28-second base reload, at least with my setup, 94 AA rating. It has pretty good AA, but I don't feel like it's overpowering with its flak. It's 32 knots with a speed boost, so it's not Georgia fast, but it's pretty fast for a Tier 9
Yeah.
battleship. It's pretty decently concealed. It does have a fighter that you can't ditch for a spotter. And it has a 32 millimeter bow, which means that stuff like the Z46 can blast it. But I like this ship. Probably so much it's why when I had enough steel, I bought the Burgonia before I bought any other steel boat, because I really like the Burgonia, which is just a better Alsace at Tier 10, right?
Yeah.
I played this. I actually played I have a decent captain on my Alsace. I enjoy it so much. 380s won't overpen as often, but they have high velocity. The guns are high velocity, so yeah. Am I gonna like in a random? Am I gonna roll up in the Alsace and like hammer a Kremlin? No. Can I hammer a Soyuz or a Lenin in a ranked? Probably not. Can I punish British battleships with this? Yeah. I can punish an Iowa with it. The 380s are good. And the weird thing about the French armor, French battleships have funky spaced armor. There are places that you shoot a French battleship that you think you're going to citadel it, and the shells don't go anywhere. There's weird stuff that happens with this ship, with Borgonia, even with Richelieu, where it will gobble up shells, and you'll wonder what happened when you shot it. So yeah, I just really like this boat. It fits my playstyle.
And I've said this on stream. I've certainly said it to you in conversations. Everybody I know who's played the Alsace thought it was great. I'm working on my Richelieu. I'm excited to get through that boat and get to Alsace, although I'm having a good time in Richelieu, so I'm not going to free XP anything. But when I get to Alsace, I'm expecting to really enjoy the boat. It's not in my port, as obviously I've just stated, so I couldn't have it make my list, but I'm glad it made yours because I think it's a worthwhile boat to talk about. People like it. At least the people I know and converse with. I'd be certainly interested to hear if people have dissenting opinions on that and maybe what the reasons are. If you have a dissenting opinion and no reasons, we don't want to hear about it. But if you got some thoughts, some data-driven thoughts in particular, that'd be really great. But Alsace seems to be popular. It's maneuverable. I like the dual quads up front. That configuration is just great. I like that on the Ritchie. And of course, you got an extra one out back on the Alsace, which is great. So not much for me to say about this boat as I don't have it, but I'm glad to see that it made your list because I am interested in getting to this one when I get up to Tier 9. Okay, I'm going to bounce on to my first one. I threw Iowa in here, and Iowa made this list for me. I was talking with Skada when we were putting our list together. We tried to not spoil each other's lists, but I said, dude, I have a lot more battleships than I thought I had. I'm not a battleship player, kind of like Skada's coming around and doing the destroyers later after he did cruisers and battleships. I'm coming around doing battleships, like I mentioned earlier. And so for me, I don't have tons and tons and tons of these boats, but I have more than I thought. So I was able to pick from a list of, 8 or 9 probably at Tier 9. And I've got a few Tier 8s as well, but I don't think I put any 8s on my battleships list. I feel like that's just asking for not having as many hit points as you should. So I put Iowa here because it's a good all-rounder. This thing can hit like I said here, it hits what you click on. It's got a strong heel. And I think it's maneuverable enough at Tier 9 to help you out. AA rating is 93. I think carriers are going to have a hard time with all the battleships that are in that are going to be in Tier 9 in ranked as we go forward. We saw over on Skada's pick, the aircraft anti-aircraft rating, I can't say any words right now, is 94. Iowa's 93, so pretty strong. A lot slower over here at 33 knots, 12.7 conceal. The repair party on this thing 625 a second for 30.8. I've got some signals or Captain Perch or something that's making that longer. Should be 28 seconds base on that, and then it reloads in 80 seconds, which is normal. But 625 a second is a pretty stout heal. Keep that number in mind as we look at my additional slides because I put a lot of repair party data on mine for the battleships. Skada, what do you think of Iowa as a pick with its 406s and so on?
I was great. I was evergreen, right? I was an awesome ship, and it does have that improved heel, right? So those American tech tree battleships have a great heel. It definitely heals better than Alsace does. The 406s hit hard. Sometimes I find that the Iowa and Missouri have vulnerabilities on their side that I don't like, and I've had exploited. And plunging fire from range, especially from like
Kutuzov and similar. Yeah.
no, I'm thinking like plunging battleship fire. So
Oh,
in this
okay.
situation, it's going to be from like Musashi's. That's a problem, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
And that's a problem for a lot of ships, but it could be a problem with these guys, right? I mean, dealing with a tier 10 battleship at tier 9. But I really like the Iowa. I like the way it
Yes.
plays. I have way more matches in my Missouri, but I think that's I can say that. In fact, the Missouri has a shittier heel or a worse heel. Sorry, folks. So, but so yeah, I do like the Iowa. It's a great all arounder, like you said, and I think its AA feels better than Alsace's. I'd have to go look and see which one has more puffs of flak. There's something about Iowa and U.S. battleship AA that feels more effective than the French.
Well, and early in the game when it was just Japan and U.S., one of the things that Japan had bad AA on battleships, U.S. had good AA on battleships, right? So there's probably something to that theory. I think that's fair. Yeah, your comment about Iowa being citadelable is absolutely true. This thing is not a mountain at sea. It is something you can pen and you can break up. So you're going to want to still make sure you're angling well and you're not rushing into something and getting yourself surrounded. You don't want to fight a 3-sided fight with an Iowa, right? Definitely concur with that. So, play safe, play smart. But that's good advice for any ship, obviously, because it's pretty generic advice. All right, let's jump over to Skada's pick number 2, Georgia, U.S. Navy.
Yeah, so you're going to see a lot of Georgias. We have forever in this kind of ranked with 9s. You can't get Georgia anymore. It's out of the game now. It's not available currently. But it's a fast battleship. I mean, again, this is kind of like talking about Alaska, man. Georgia, it wasn't in the game forever, but man, people got Georgia. And it's a great ship. It's got 450. It was like the first American battleship that had 457s, right? So you only have 6 barrels. Mine has a 20-kilometer range, the way I have it set up with a 26-second reload. I think you have the reload mod in slot 6. I know you crowed about having a faster reload.
I like it. I miss a lot. So
I have the dispersion mod on that, especially now that Deadeye's gone, because I always feel like when battleships only fire 6 guns, I always feel like it's going to be a bad time. It's got good AA. You can't take a fighter on it. I think I usually take the spotter. 33 knots with speed boost. When it's a speed boost, it's like up to 40. It's silly. Great concealment for what it is, although I don't run concealment on mine right now, because by God, I build it for secondaries. It's not in vogue. I don't care. I have the Massachusetts, the Georgia, and the Ohio for a reason, and that's because they are American secondary battleships with big guns, and they are fun. And so that's how I build mine. Georgia's not the tankiest tier 9. You can get beat up in a Georgia, kind of like you can in the Iowa, right? It's kind of a modified fast battleship hull, and the U.S. fast battleship hulls weren't about being dreadnoughts anymore. But you're going to see tons of Georgias, and with good reason. Those 457s hurt. They overmatch a lot of stuff. You can pummel Alaskas. You can pummel Kronshtadt. You can pummel battleships quite readily with them, and the reload on them is pretty good. So yeah, Georgia. Toot toot.
Yeah, good pick. Speed is fun. I like a battleship that can get places it shouldn't be able to have gotten by this time in the match, right? I think that's great. 457s are fantastic. Yeah, good stuff for sure. Absolutely. Definitely like that, the speed and I remember we had a conversation about the dispersion pick versus the reload pick in slot 6. I said, well, if I only got 6 guns, I figure I might as well shoot more often. And your response was, well, I figure if I only have 6 guns, I want to hit when I shoot them, right? So I think those are both good schools of thought, pretty valuable considerations on that boat. All right, I'm going to bounce over to my number 2 pick, which is Pommern. This is the only pick I allowed myself to choose that's a boat I don't have. I've never played the Pommern because I don't have it yet. I have enough coal to get it. I'm waiting for a coupon. I don't know if I'm going to pick the Pommern, but there's a high likelihood. I like these crazy German secondary battleships that have torpedoes, and I think Pommern has acoustics as well. Yeah, it does. And it's stupid and fun, and it has slightly smaller caliber guns like the Scharnhorst does. So I went with Pommern. I had to take it. even though I don't have it in my port. So again, take this with all of the grains of salt that you think that is fair, coming from a dude who's never played Pommern. But what I read on paper and what I've heard from close friends is that Pommern is dope. It's a lot of fun, and I should go get it. Hull repair. We talked about the 625 or whatever it was on the previous slide. Pommern's is less, right? That tells you a little bit about how good Iowa's is. Hey, Big GD3, I'm glad to hear yet another endorsement for Pommern, so thank you. You're encouraging me to get this here next month when the coupon comes back in. Concealment is a joke. 15.1 with the Captain perk. I used my FTG Captain, or I used a WoW's Fitting tool, excuse me, to kind of cook this up, and I built my FTG Captain out in there and said, how does this work? I don't think my German Captain build is particularly optimized, so please don't ask me for advice there. It's mostly a survivability secondary build. I think it's probably fine, but there are people who have made a study of this German battleship thing who could probably give you a better config for Pommern. So again, note is I built this on WoW's Fitting tool, not in the game itself because I don't own this boat. Skada, you want to talk Pommern? No?
It's okay.
Oh. All right. Well, do you want to talk about your number one then? Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Why don't you talk about Pommern now?
Pommern is my favorite battleship that you can play right now in this mode. As you can see, my Pommern has the King Pimp camo, unlike Clyde's non-existent Pommern.
That is fabulous.
I love this ship so much. I love. I don't care that Wargaming decided they wanted to ruin everything I loved about battleships, which is secondary battleships that literally spray death in every direction and wreak havoc. I still love Pommern. I convinced our good friend and clanmate Honey Badger, who was one of the reasons why I played German battleships in the first place and why I wanted to get a Grosser Kurfürst. I convinced him to get Pommern, and we've gone out and played Pommern together, and that is fun too. Friends with Pommerns running through fields of flowers. It's a ton of fun. As much as I really don't like Frederick de Grosse, it's amazing how much Pommern improves upon that, right? So it has some of the same drawbacks of FTG. Yeah. Its turtleback has some oddities. So if you are steaming at full speed in Pommern and you turn hard over, you can lift your turtleback and you can take citadels. So you have to know that about it. This is a German captain thing. If you've played these boats, you kind of know that. Like, you don't want to make that kind of maneuver unless you absolutely have to. You spend a lot of time looking at where guns are aimed, right? It has smaller guns than FTG, right? The FTG has like the 420s, I think you can push it up to, and it has like 8 of them, right? And I don't care because having 12 380s off of Bismarck is fine by me. The 380s work fine at this tier. They work fine on 10s. They're good enough. The 33-second reload is the one bummer. This ship came out recently enough that it experiences a little bit of what I consider the current wargaming method to nerf battleships, or when they put out a new battleship now, if it's too cool in test, they just juice the reload out to outer space. See Vermont.
You mean making it longer, making it like 40 seconds? Yeah.
See Hizen. See anything that you think might be cool. If it's a battleship, they've wrecked the reload to try to lower the DPM because they don't want you to have fun. It probably ruins stats for carriers. I don't know. Yes. So the 33-second reload kind of bums me out. I wish it was like a 29-second reload. I know that doesn't seem like a lot. The range is fine.
Luckily, it's 12 guns, though, right?
It's got 12 guns. Now, it does have the problem that Kurfürst and the FTG has, that the firing angles on the rear turrets kind of blow. So you have to give up a little bit more side than you want to get the rear turrets in play. But you learn how to do it safely when you're engaging, right? And so, it's got, again, torpedoes, which is a ton of fun. It's the old Tirpitz. It's Tirpitz at tier 9 is what this thing is. It's just everything that you liked about Tirpitz, but at tier 9.
Tier 9 with hydros.
With hydro, right? It has hydros. What it doesn't have is great AA. At least mine doesn't. Like, I've gotten just raked over the coals by tier 10 carriers with it. That part kind of sucks. It's not fast, but 31's fine. my concealment's 15.1 without the captain skill, because I'm running a full secondary. I'm running secondaries. I'm running the brawler, and I'm running fire prevention, I believe. I don't run the extra heal because in competitive I don't need it because the match doesn't last long enough, or I don't last long enough to need it. I played this boat when this boat came out was when we had the 3v3 sprint in ranked,
Yeah.
and I dominated in that with this, and a lot of people did. But it's so powerful against a lot of the other like tier battleships. It's just really good. And yeah, like now the secondaries reach farther, but they aren't as accurate. That's kind of sad. But I still use them, and they still, now they shoot off both sides at the same time, which I guess is supposedly better. But the DPM just isn't there like it used to be. But if you do take IFHE on your captain for this, which I don't necessarily recommend anymore, but I used to do when the secondaries were more accurate, they would pen 37 millimeter, 32 and 37. And so you could tear up pretty much anything with those secondaries. I would dissolve Jean Bart's with them.
Yes.
Alsace, Iowa, Alaska, all comers at tier 9, the secondaries would do work on, and then you had your mains there. And then if they got spicy, you could torp them. So I love the ship. I love it. And I will play it. I played it last time in ranked when I decided to take out a battleship. I played this, and I have plenty of choices at tier 9 that we'll talk about in honorable mention, but I just love this ship.
No, that's good. And again, you've got the beautiful camo. It makes it even easier to pick. I mean, yeah, Pommern's just really strong. Big fan of everything I know about it, so it's very high on my list of things to make sure I acquire. I think someday it's going to go away. They haven't talked about that to my knowledge, but maybe they'll leave it in for longer. Maybe it'll be a long-running available coal boat. We'll see. But yeah, good deal. Let's talk honorable battleship. Oh no, hang on. I've got my number one. Number one, I picked Georgia for this one. It's not a surprising pick. It's kind of like the Alaska, sort of boring. And I'm sure that people are saying, but you guys didn't pick Musashi. It's true, we didn't. I didn't pick Musashi because I'm bad at it. I am not very good at hitting with Musashi. I'll tell you what I like to do in the Musashi is click, and so I can hear the guns firing because they are the best sounding guns in this game. They sound so good. But for me, I do a little bit better in the Georgia, and it's partly because the Georgia is a little bit weird. And I am not really a battleship main, so taking your battleship advice from me is an adventure that you take on your own, friend. I will encourage you to do your own thinking, as we did at the beginning of this segment. But I love the Georgia 457s. I've got mine down to 22.9 seconds for reload. So yeah, you can do burnouts in it, as I said in my comment there. The AA rating is plenty high. You're going to be safe from tier 8 carriers, more or less. Will they still get a torp drop on you? Yes, they will, but you'll survive. So speed 33 knots. It goes up to 39.8 when you hit the turbo. That's pretty sweet. My conceal is lower. I've got a captain perk on there for that, so I think it's higher than that naturally. Repair party's fair, right? It's right in there. It's pretty competitive with what we just saw on the Pommern, and but it heals, or it reloads in 38 seconds with my configuration. I think that's slightly juiced. I think it's 40 seconds naturally, which is right on par with that BS heal reload that we have on the Massachusetts, because the Massachusetts and Georgia share a lot of aspects. They're similar ships. Skada likes to joke about how the Massachusetts, Georgia, and Ohio is the actual U.S. battleship split, and that 40-second reload thing is a joke. That's not real. And I kind of like that sentiment. But the fact that you can hit that repair party every 38 seconds means that when you get into the into the mix, if you're into a really hot spot, where you're getting scorched up by things you shouldn't have because you use that speed inappropriately, you're going to have the opportunity to cook off 2 heals 40 seconds apart, right? You're going to hit one, it's going to heal for 30 seconds. 40 seconds later, you can hit the next one as you're making your escape. And you are going to escape because you've got the speed boost, and you put the I can speed boost for a long time module on there that you bought for coal out of the armory and stuff like that. So unsurprising pick probably, unless you were waiting for a Musashi drop. I want to talk about Musashi, though. I'm going to throw that one to Skada. What do you think about Musashi? Neither of us picked it. It's obviously a very strong boat. It's a tier 10 at tier 9. Why didn't it make your list, and what do you think about the Musashi?
Yeah, we both have it.
Yes.
So we could have picked it. I'll tell you, I don't like IJN battleships that much. I just don't like the way they play. I haven't found one that I really enjoy. I can take the Musashi out. I think the last time we took it out in a random, I probably had 6-figure damage. When you're shooting, I specifically remember blasting into Zuma that gave me broadside, just devastating him, right? But like, the guns on it are great. They overpen a lot because they're so big. That frustrates me. I hate the turret traverse. It's god awful. I don't like the steering and the handling of the ship itself. I don't enjoy driving it. I don't like trying to reposition it. If I don't get a good position that I'm happy with, I don't like trying to reposition it because it doesn't feel good to drive around. I just don't like it. I'm not. A lot of people love the Yamato and they love those ships. And you know what? If you have Musashi and you're a Yamato guy, go for it, right? It's just not my cup of tea. Plus, the AA on it sucks. That's its
bad.
definite letdown on it. I mean, that's the gimmick on it between the Yamato, right? The Yamato's got upgraded AA, the Musashi didn't have. What I do like about it is that it was real steel. I was thinking about that when we were talking about Alaska. I like that Alaska was real. Kronshtadt I think was real too, or it was sort of built.
I think it was half built or something. You
Half
should do your own
built.
research, but I think Kronshtadt was
but
at least
like Alaska was
built.
real. Like I like that I like the ships that were real that aren't paper, and I can take this boat out and use it. Everybody and their dog knows you can cheek the Musashi, you can cheek the Yamato, you can cheek the Shikishima. I bet by God you'll be able to cheek the Satsuma that's coming out in the new Super Wawa battleship mode, right?
Let's talk about that real quickly.
That armor situation is a bummer, and it always makes me feel like I can't bow tank other battleships with it, and it just frustrates me. So I wouldn't pick it. It wouldn't even be my fourth pick. If I was doing a top 5 list, it would probably be my 5th pick. My 4th pick would be Jean Bart, over this, just because of the play style and how it feels to me.
Yeah. So when we talk about cheeking the Musashi, and you guys probably already know this, but basically, if you shoot that boat right here, you will Citadel it, and you can do that with a 300 millimeter shell. You can do it with a 220 millimeter shell. I have a video on my YouTube channel of me in a Moskva. I think it's my Moskva battle where I get Citadel after Citadel after Citadel against Musashi just by blapping it right here. You can definitely hit this guy. And what's going on there is the bow armor is 32 millimeters, and behind that is this plate. Look at the angle of this plate. You can catch that and go through that and get into some stuff there. And it gets into this gun casemate and stuff. So I don't know exactly
I've Citadel the Yamato with a Des Moines, right? I mean, you can if you know what you're aiming at, and everybody does now. Like everybody knows where to aim on that ship.
Yeah.
So that's why I wouldn't pick it. I tried it a little bit when we did the clan battles at 9. I just didn't. I mean, it's fine. Like I like playing it. I like playing it in randoms. Like there's a meme I made. I'm famous on the World of Warships Reddit now for creating a meme, and it's the meme of like Arnold Schwarzenegger doing the superhero or the action movie handshake with Carl Weathers from Predator, and it talks about Musashi and Giulio Cesare both beating up on tier 7s, right? And so like Musashi is really fun when you take it into a random and you get to just blast the crap out of a York.
So I will say that this is a Skada and Clyde problem, not a Musashi problem, right? Yeah. There are people who are really good at those long bomb, long range shots with this boat, and I think those people will show up in force with Musashis, punking cruisers from 24 kilometers away, 26 kilometers away. So I expect to see those folks, and you should too. Plan for that, understand it, and know how to deal with the Yamato in whatever it is you take. Or, excuse me, Musashi. We wouldn't allow a tier 10 into tier 9s. That's absurd. So anyhow, definitely you're going to see Musashis. I think I'd still call it an honorable mention for me. Definitely think that it is worth looking at for somebody to pick. Other battleships, I think, things like your Rosaya / Soyuz are going to be solid picks. I think people are going to take those. I don't think that they're special in a large way necessarily. I think they're tanky, good battleships that can hit stuff. So I think you'll see those. Somebody's going to take a Massachusetts out there, and it's because maybe they didn't have the ability to get the Georgia before it left. But I don't think I would choose Massachusetts when Georgia is available, personally. I don't know what else you'll see. I've been playing my Izumo. I like it. That's where I'm at. I'm not yet to Yamato, but I'm at Izumo. I'll think about taking Izumo maybe. I like Hizen. I don't think Hizen is super special. I think it's all right. But I like my Hizen, so maybe I'll try it if I'm going to battleship. I think likely I won't battleship in silver if and when I get there this season. I'll just do destroyers and stuff because that's more my bread and butter up there. Any other honorable mentions from you, Skada, you want to talk about in the battleship realm?
Yeah, Massachusetts for me. I like Massachusetts better than Georgia from a certain point of view.
Okay.
And it kind of goes back to what we talked about before with Cossack and with Kidd, right? So Massachusetts is the most powerful Tier 8 battleship, I think. And so if you bring that and the other Tier 8 battleship is not that, that's a plus up for your team. So I like Massachusetts.
That's a good point.
Other, I probably wouldn't take Soyuz, but I do have Sovietskaya Rosaya like you do. And the beauty of that is, since it's a premium, I can put Kuznetsov on it instead of I can take my Kremlin Kuznetsov and put him on Soviet Rosaya.
That's true. Yeah.
Don't think when I'm playing the Kronshtadt, I'm not running Kuznetsov as well, right? Will to Victory is very strong. If you want, the free heal before you die, it is that's like the most powerful captain perk. So if you have that captain and you have a boat you can put him on, that helps. I even ran him in the bronze on Leningrad because why wouldn't I? And it actually procced. I got that heal off.
Yeah.
Jean Bart is a really good battleship that you're going to see a lot of for people that have them because of its reload booster, because of its ability to stay bow in on stuff, because its guns are all forward. You always see a lot of Jean Barts. Plus, it gets around pretty well.
Yep.
And it lights fires and has pretty good pen with its 380s. And again, it's got similar guns to the Alsace. It just has less of them in a different configuration.
Yeah, you'll see Jean Barts.
I think you'll see Lepanto because people are leveling the Italians and they're new. In fact, I played Lepanto in the qualifier the other day because I'm leveling my Lepanto. I'm not quite to Columbus yet, or Colombo. You'll probably see Marco Polo because it's a premium Italian Tier 9. I don't like Marco Polo. I think it's kind of crummy. I actually think the Lepanto is better, but that's just my take. Things that I'm not going to expect to see. Wu Jing and Baji. Not a lot of Pan-Asian premium Tier 9 battleship players out there.
True.
I like the Wu Jing because it's an Alsace. So I would play the Wu Jing if I had a better captain for it, just to be that guy.
Captain is what's going to hold people back.
Yeah, just to be that guy. Ultimately, if you have a Chung Mu or a Tier 10 Pan-Asian destroyer, you could use that captain on those ships and it would be good enough, right? Because you can do that now.
Yeah, thanks to the captain rework.
But again, I mean, Baji is just an Izumo, right? So I think Baji actually has a better Sigma than Izumo, but Izumo's not bad. I think you might see Izumos. People always play those. You're going to see Hizen. Hizen's not bad. Hizen's a pretty good ship from a certain kind of play style. You're going to see Hizens for people that finish that dockyard at Christmas.
Hizen is good at that dabbing shot, right? Where it can throw its guns over its shoulder. That's true.
Yeah. And you're going to see, as this goes on, right? You got to remember, this ranked season goes until August. So as these weeks go on, even though we're talking silver, which takes some commitment to get to, you're going to see people that are just taking stuff that they're leveling. Right? So you're going to see Minnesota. And you're going to see...
I wanted to ask you about those Fat Boy U.S. battleships.
Yeah.
I don't played them.
I like Vermont because it's overpowered because it has 12 457s.
Yeah.
I didn't like Minnesota a whole lot when I was playing it. It's gotten a buff. Minnesota and Kansas both got a buff. The problem when those boats were put into the game is to nerf them. Not only did they have an insanely long reload, which they still have, but if you look at them, even though the Minnesota and the Kansas both have the same rifles as the Iowa, they don't have the same shells. They have like the same shell version B, which had way crummier pen. They've tweaked that since they came out to make the pen better. I don't think it's still as good as Iowa, but it's better than it was when I played Minnesota. So, yeah, will you see Minnesota? Yeah. I'd rather play Iowa. I'd most rather play Missouri all day long and twice on Sunday just to make silver. But you'll see Minnesota. People, right. It's because it's a bad American ship. You'll see Soyuz for that same reason, because people might be leveling it. I think you'll see Vladivostoks. I think you surprisingly will see a lot of Tier 8 battleships that people have, because they're not too far off the Tier 9s.
The only trouble with that, I think, is the hit points you're going to be giving up, right?
Yeah, that's true. But if you don't have the 9 and you want a good way to get to the 9, you start to see that halfway through ranked. After the first few weeks when all the tryhards are up in gold, and you just have people playing in ranked rather than randoms. Because I actually think when I'm playing solo right now and ranks available, I play in ranked all day long and twice on Sunday over randoms. It's more fun for me. Sure. Because you're playing like tier and you don't have to worry about certain things. I like it better. But
I want to go back and talk a little bit about my favorite thing to talk about with battleships. And you've heard this story too many times. And for you, I apologize, Skada, but for anybody else,
it's fine.
When we talk about battleships, you have 1,200 seconds in a battle. At 30-second reload, you're going to get 40 opportunities to shoot if you're shooting perfectly on schedule every time. With a 40-second reload, you only get 30 of those. And you're not going to have perfect opportunities all the time. So when we talk about things like Kansas, Minnesota, Vermont, again, ships I haven't played, you're reducing your opportunities to do damage and hoping that you're going to get more damage. I just looked at Minnesota. It has 406s with the Mark 13 shell on them. I'm sorry, it's got a Mark 7 shell. Now, this wouldn't be upgraded here, obviously. Same shell as Iowa. So if Iowa gets to shoot more often, right, I'd want to look at the pen and really do some of the math, But it's kind of worth considering that Iowa gets to shoot more often. It's got a really strong heel. It's more maneuverable. Why wouldn't you take Iowa over Minnesota? Somebody's going to have a good reason why. I wanted to put in a plug for that. GMAC asks about Odin, or do you have a thought on that? Go ahead.
Yeah, and my thought on that is it's because they're trying to get Vermont, and they already have. They finished the U.S. line 3 years ago, and they're just playing Minnesota.
If you're grinding and you're on Minnesota,
in the way of getting Vermont. Right?
Yeah, and again, that's the discussion, outside of the what's the best ship to take. But you're right. That's the reason and motivation people might be in that boat. GMAX comment about Odin. Skada and I love the crap out of Odin. It is a fantastic boat. We're huge fans of it, but it's low hit points. I think it's only like 40,000 hit points. And when
it's like 51, but it's bad.
Oh, is it that high? Okay.
A Tier 8 battleship. I mean, I specifically remember a random fight where I was in Odin and I was squaring off against a Tirpitz, and he was kiting away, and I was angling towards him, and we both were pecking at each other with our secondaries. And I knew he would win because he has way more hit points than I do to start with. Odin's low hit point pool just makes it hard in those situations. I fought a bunch of Odins in ranked last time. People bring them out.
I think if it were
low hit points hurt.
If it were tier 8 ranked, I'd be more comfortable doing it, and I probably would do it because I like Odin. I'm very comfortable in it. I think it's a tough boat. I like that it has acoustics, whereas Tirpitz does not, So I would probably do it if it was just tier 8. But if it's tier 8, 9, I'm going to be a little more afraid to do so.
Take your Odin, and I'll take my Pommern, and we'll charge each other.
Let's see what happens. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Pommern's just going to shred you, Yeah. It's not going to be a fun day.
Even if we just did a torp run on each other, they have the same torps, but even if we did a torp run on each other, I'm going to be alive on the other side of it, and you're probably not. And
that's the thing, right?
That hit point pool just really hinders it, and they know that. Like, it had more hit points when it was in test. It was like a 65,000 hit point boat, and they nerfed the bejesus out of it before they put it out.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, because it was good. It was too good, and they were like, "Oh, we don't like German ships to be good."
Right.
If we wanted this ship to be good, we'd have to come up with some cockamamie story about how it was built, but then it was given to the Russians for reparations, and it's actually not the Odin; it's the it's the Rasputin or something.
It's something Russian flavored. Yeah. I mean, again, I really like the Odin. I still think it's a capable boat, but you're right. It's weak on the hit points, smaller caliber guns than Tirpitz, things like that.
We both love playing it, though. I mean, absolutely, we love taking it into randoms, and Clyde's had Krakens in it. We've had amazing games where we both took it out and we platooned in them and had a blast.
Yeah.
They're just fun.
It's a hoot. Very much so. Okay. Do you have anything? No, neither of us have a slide about aircraft carriers. The reason I don't have one is because I don't have any tier 8 carriers, and I do not feel like I can have a good conversation about them. The thing I want to mention is that carriers are going to be there. I don't know if we're going to see. We don't see a lot in bronze right now, so we might not see that many CVs. And I don't know that. Like I said, I don't think we'll see a ton of them, but they're going to be out there. So in your DDs, you're going to want to make sure that you've got some way to evade or avoid them. Whether that's smoke or whether that's dancing or something in your cruisers. You're going to want to make sure that you either accept the risk of taking a cruiser with bad AA or you take a cruiser with good AA. And the same is true for battleships. Although I think if you're in a tier 9 battleship that's not Musashi, you're going to have strong AA against tier 8 aircraft carriers. So I don't have any picks for aircraft carriers, and it's not out of any hatred for CVs or CV players. It's that I don't think I can hold an intelligent conversation about them. So I'm sparing you me just spewing nonsense. Skada, do you have any CV thoughts for the ranked silver crew?
Yeah, I didn't pick any this time because I don't have any tech tree tier 8 carriers. I'm not that far. I've been playing carriers actively because I'm almost out of destroyers to play. So it's going to be play carriers or wait for new lines to be put in the game. And so I just don't have any of the tech tree 8s. I have all the premium 8s. I have Enterprise, Saipan. Actually, you know what? I don't have all of them because they put out a Pan-Asian Saipan this year and they didn't sucker me into that one. I do not have whatever it was called, the Zippity Doodah or whatever it's named. I don't care, but I don't have that. I have the Saipan, I have the Enterprise, I have the Indomitable, and I have the Graf Zeppelin twice. I actually got the Graf Zeppelin B out of a crate this year.
It's like my Massachusetts story.
Yeah, right. Yeah, except I'd rather have the Massachusetts twice.
Sure.
To be fair, Graf Zeppelin used to have better secondaries, but it doesn't anymore after the Captain rework.
Right.
So, I think you'll see people who have Enterprise are going to use Enterprise because it's overpowered. There's a reason it's not in the game anymore. Enterprise is just really good at 8. But otherwise, I think you're going to see a lot of, August von Parzival. There's the tier 8 German. You're going to see those because they're strong. And, you'll probably see Lexingtons and, Shikaku? Is that the tier 8 Japanese one?
Yes.
I don't remember. Anyway, you're going to see all of them, right? Because the carrier guys are just going to be like, I'm going to go play which one I'm good at. And you'll see all of them probably. And there's a lot of choices. There's a lot of choices for those premiums again there. You may not see the British premium because, nobody plays that because it's weird. It doesn't have torpedo planes. It only has rockets and bombs. But the planes are really fast. I like actually using it for stuff when you have to farm missions. It's great because the planes are so fast. But, I just don't feel like... I don't think you'll see carriers in every match, and I don't know if you'll even really see carriers every other match. I just feel like the carriers are few and far between sometimes. Unless you take something that's ultra vulnerable to them, and then you'll see them every time.
Yes, when I took out my Yugumo with rapid torpedo, or not Yugumo, Shiratsuyu in bronze with rapid torpedo reload, I was sure I would get a carrier, and I did it twice, and once I did get a carrier, and I was really bummed about that. But I don't think we're going to see a ton of them, but they're not going to be non-existent. So be aware that you've got carriers causing you trouble and or planning to cause you trouble. And if you're a carrier captain and you've got some great thoughts on this, hit me up in the comments below. I want to learn more about carriers. I'm not particularly good at them. I'm at tier 6 on all of the lines. So Skada's ahead of me there. But
I'm at tier 6 on all the lines as well.
You're ahead of me on tier 6, I think, is I guess what I'm saying. But so I think you're going to get to 8s first. But yeah, I want to get a little more knowledgeable there. So by all means, hit us up in the comments. Get me on Twitter. I'll try to make sure I throw Scott, if you want, I'll throw your Twitter handle in the description of this video when it goes on YouTube. You guys can track him down, or you can find him via my Twitter profile as well. He's always got
either way. Nobody follows on that Twitter, so it's whatever. If somebody actually DM'd me on that Twitter, I would assume it was some kind of honeypot scheme.
Well, I mean, and they might just get at you or something too. So by all means, look us up on those other platforms and hang out with us there too. I think that's all we have to say about Silver Ranked. I think we had a pretty good discussion. I really appreciate all the comments and stuff in chat. Arrow the Red, thanks for joining us and following on Twitch. That's exciting. I want to get my Twitch followers up over 100 as well, just like we've got over on YouTube. Slow and steady growth. I only stream a couple of days a week, usually here Tuesday nights and Saturday mornings.